Chapter 18. Wang Wanner's Lantern Viewing Sparks Trouble. Poem. A hero's courage and wisdom are extraordinary. Why must he sacrifice himself for a friend? The Qin court wanted to crush Jiang Qi's head. Nai Zheng's corpse once lay across the Han market. His breath died, his fragrant soul turned to dust. His sword flew like frost and snow, vanquishing demons. To sweep away all injustice for you, what I learn from the frivolous youths of Chang'an. The world is full of useless things, full of injustices. Useless things are nothing but amusement and play. Injustices are caused by momentary anger, drawing swords against each other. One should know that injustice often arises from useless things. When people see this, their eyes blaze. When they hear this, their hearts flare with anger. Everyone has this injustice. If one doesn't have the means to help the weak and punish the strong, one can only feel annoyed. If one insists on being brave to the end, one cannot subdue the enemy but instead invites disaster. This is not the skill of a hero who knows himself and his enemy. If one is truly a hero, relying on one's own abilities, what is there to fear from princes and nobles, or from those who stand in his way? A small attempt to take the head of a general from a million-strong army is likely not as futile as slaying a fox or catching a rabbit. Aside from a momentary act of great evil, it is a just consequence of the principle that all wicked and immoral acts will be punished. As the saying goes, calamity for lust is heaven's will, but it only uses the hands of heroes. Now let's talk about the women of Chang'an, born into wealthy families, with ample food and clothing, who are not greatly moved by the outside world. It is the women of humble families who, after a year of hardship, are delighted to encounter a leisurely month, seeing the streets ablaze with lights and the sounds of music and song. A contemporary poem describes the splendor of the lights and moon. When the moon is full, the lights are new. The city is filled with lights and moonlight, white as silver. 1,000 lights shine under the round moon. The moon shines brightly within the lights. Looking at the lights under the moon, the lights symbolize wealth. Appreciating the moon before the lights, the moon embodies spirit. Tonight, in the moonlight and lamplight, all are people watching the lights and enjoying the moon. At that time, people of all ages, men and women, strolled about, enjoying the lanterns. Even the most virtuous and chaste women couldn't help but feel their hearts flutter, and their feet would inevitably be adorned. Walking across bridges and strolling under the moon, Zhang's daughter mingled with Aunt Li, and Zhao's mother made an appointment with the money shopkeeper. Laughing and giggling, they couldn't contain themselves, displaying many flirtatious and alluring mannerisms. This attracted the attention of princes and nobles, young knights-errant and gossipy men of Chang'an, who flitted through the lantern market, seeking fragrance, chasing shadows, and engaging in flirtatious banter. They were hardly truly there to appreciate the lanterns. This strolling across bridges and strolling under the moon led to a certain incident. There was a widowed old woman named Wang, with her 18-year-old daughter, nicknamed Wanner, who, in high spirits, also went out to see the lanterns. And what did you think of Wang's daughter? Her waist was like a willow in spring, her face like a peach blossom in February. Her skin was as fair as ice, and her bones as beautiful as jade, especially under the lanterns and moonlight. The mother and daughter, leaving the servant to watch the house, went out to the main street to see the lanterns. As soon as they stepped out of the gate, a group of vagrants followed them, swarming and dodging, eyeing Wanner. Once on the main street, they were like swarms of bees and ants, unable to move freely. Not only was Wanner terrified, but her mother was also overwhelmed. Just as she was regretting her unnecessary outing, a ruffian from young Master Yuan's household, searching outside, rushed to inform the young master. Hearing that a beautiful woman was ahead, the young master hurriedly caught up. Upon seeing Wanner's face, he was utterly captivated. Seeing that she was accompanied by an old woman, He felt she was easy prey and began to harass her, rubbing against her shoulder and back. Wanner was so frightened that she remained silent, with nowhere to escape. The old woman, not recognizing young Master Yuan, saw the indecent act and had no choice but to speak up. Taking advantage of the situation, Yuan Huji feigned anger and said, "This old woman is so rude, daring to bump into me. Lock her up and take her back." At his words, all the servants responded in unison, and with a clatter, they dragged the mother and daughter to the mansion gate. The old woman and Wanner were terrified, drenched in cold sweat, unable to scream, as if they had been pushed through clouds and carried away by lightning, completely numb. Even in the marketplace there were onlookers, who didn't know that young Master Yuan dared to stop or intervene. Upon arriving at the mansion gate, old Lady Wang, having no use for him, decided to keep him locked up in the gatehouse. He only carried Wanner through several halls before finally stopping at the study. Yuan Huji had already arrived, and all the servants had left the room, leaving only a few maids. Yuan Huji couldn't resist approaching and being affectionate. Wanner, however, was in a bad mood and swung at his face, retaliating with a slap. After a while, the young master, angered, ordered the maids to beat him and lock him in the room. 587 words omitted here. Just then, someone came in and whispered, "That old woman is making a scene outside the mansion gate. How should we deal with her?" The young master said, "I don't believe anyone would throw such a tantrum. I'll go out myself." 141 words omitted here. The young master went out of the mansion gate and asked the old woman why she was acting so violently. Seeing the young master come out, the old woman wailed even louder, beating her chest and stamping her feet, crying out to heaven and earth, demanding her daughter. The young master said, "I've already taken your daughter. You should go home now. There's no need to wait here to beat me." The old woman said, "Don't even mention beating me. You can kill me too." "I must return my daughter. I'm an old widow, and this is the only daughter I've given birth to. She's betrothed, but not yet married. Mother and daughter depend on each other. Our lives are at stake. If you don't return her, I'll die here tonight." The young master said, "If that's the case, not so many of my servants would have died." He ordered his men to chase her out. The servants pushed, pulled, and beat her until the old woman was driven out of the alley gate. And they wouldn't let her back in. Young Master Yuan, still not satisfied, led 100 or 2 ruthless men, wandering the streets, intending to find another woman with an orifice to satisfy his lust. It was already the second watch of the night. Young Master Yuan, utterly wicked and deserving of death, had come out to cause trouble again. Every sip and bite is preordained. Moreover, life and death are largely determined by fate, and one cannot escape the will of heaven. Indeed. Misfortune and fortune have no fixed gate. They are summoned by oneself. As the old man once said, "How can heaven predict the future?" Meanwhile, Xu Bao and his band of heroes were playing around when they saw several hundred people gathered around the official's dismounting sign, making a commotion. The heroes parted the crowd to see what was happening and found an old woman with disheveled white hair, prostrate on the ground, weeping loudly. Bo Dang asked the onlookers, "Why is this old woman crying in the street?" The onlookers replied, "Gentlemen, don't concern yourselves with this. This old woman is naive. She has a daughter who is betrothed but not yet married. She took her to see the lanterns in the street when she was abducted by young Master Yuan." Xu Bao asked, "Which young Master Yuan?" The man replied, "The son of Minister of War, Lord Yuan." Xu Bao asked, "Is he the one from the archery range?" The crowd replied, "That's him." At that time, even Qin Xiubao had completely forgotten Li Yayashi's words, but these were all people who were always eager to right wrongs. Hearing this, they were all filled with rage, their eyes blazing with fury. They demanded of the old woman, "What is your surname?" The old woman replied, "My surname is Wang, and I live behind young Master Yuan's residence." Qi Guoyuan said, "Go back now. That young Master Yuan is playing football at the archery range. We won dozens of bolts of colorful silk and silver ornaments from him here. We'll find him, redeem your daughter, and return her to you." The old woman kowtowed 4 times, wept, and went home. Xu Bao asked the people on both sides, "Did that young master really snatch his daughter?" The people replied, "It wasn't just today. He started snatching her on the 12th. In Chang'an, during the Lantern Festival, women from ordinary families would come out to walk across bridges and watch the lanterns in the market. The young master would pick out the best ones and snatch them back to his mansion. If they were clever and knew how to flatter, he would call their parents or husbands to his mansion the next day and give them some money. If they were rude and offended the young master, he would beat them to death and throw them into a hidden room. No one dared to take their lives. On the 13th and 14th, he snatched a few more. Tonight, it was this old woman's turn." At first, Xu Bao was willing to pay with colored silk and silver to redeem her, but after hearing these words, he was tempted to beat her and asked everyone he met about young Master Yuan. The crowd said, "You are all from the outer capital, and your attire is different. If you encounter the young master, you might not be able to exchange words with him, and given his temper, he might hurt you." Xu Bao said, "I wonder what his attire is like. If you ask, we can avoid him." The crowd said, "Young Master Yuan has a private house where he keeps many outlaws, all of whom are impervious to heat or cold. At times like this, they are all completely naked. Each carries a short stick that reaches their eyebrows, and there are 100 or 200 of them leading the way, followed by his family retainers who know martial arts, with real spears and swords, performing a folk dance. The young master rides a horse. In front of him are people dressed in blue robes and large hats, with 5 or 6 pairs of stewards holding lanterns and stoves, all lined up in front of him. In Chang'an, these retainers from the imperial guards, who are dressed as folk dancers, will come to watch the young master perform in the street. If they dance well, it's like admiring the flowers at a shooting range. If they dance poorly, they will be beaten to a pulp." Xu Bao said, "Thank you all." He then searched for young Master Yuan on the Imperial Road, outside the West Chang'an Gate. At midnight, the moon shone as brightly as day. Just as they were searching, they spotted young Master Yuan arriving. Sure enough, he carried hundreds of short clubs resembling wolf fangs. The young master, dressed in flamboyant attire, sat on a horse, followed by a large retinue of servants. As the saying goes, enemies are destined to meet. The crowd, who had been hiding by the street, looking for him, stopped abruptly before him. A servant announced, "The household guards of Duke Du of Xia have brought a folk performance." The young master asked, "What story?" The servant replied, "The 3 battles of Hulao Pass against Lu Bu." After the performance, the young master praised it, and the crowd asked for rewards. The young master had just dismissed the group when Uncle Bao, having already dressed himself, shouted, "There's still the folk performance." 5 heroes burst in, pushing through the crowd, saying, "We are the 5 horses defeating Cao Cao." The young master, however, recognized their skill, thinking to himself, "These people don't have the agility of the ghost dancers." Qin Shubao wielded 2 golden maces, Wang Bating 2 swords, Chai Sicheng 1 sword, Qi Guoyuan 2 golden hammers, and Li Rugui a water-polished bamboo-jointed steel whip. The clash of the whips and maces produced a clanging sound like exploding sparks as they danced. Although the street was wide, the heroes couldn't move freely. The weapons were heavy, and when they touched people's faces, a chilling aura emanated from them. People couldn't stand still at the doorways on both sides and crowded to the ends. Qi Guoyuan thought to himself, "Killing him now isn't difficult. The difficulty lies in the people blocking our way, preventing our escape. Unless we set fire to the lantern shed, and the people try to put it out, they won't be able to stop my brothers." He then leaped onto the roof. The young master, unaware that there was a fire, was only aware of the situation. 5 people were dancing, and one was about to dance down from the roof, but he didn't know the fire was about to start. Seeing the fire on the lantern shed, Qin Shubao knew the situation was beyond control. He leaped forward like a tiger, landing in front of his horse, and struck the young master on the head with his mace. The young master, sitting on his horse with his body arched back, was unprepared. Moreover, Xiu Bao's 64-pound golden mace struck him on the head, causing the horse to stumble and fall. His men cried out, "Oh no, the young master is dead." They all brandished their spears, swords, and clubs. Rushing towards Xiu Bao swung his golden mace, parrying the attacks. Qi Guoyuan jumped down from the lantern shed and swung his golden hammer. These heroes, one by one. Their hearts blazed with fury, their mouths roared like thunder. With the bodies of ferocious beasts, they charged straight and sideways. They fought, sending fleeing men tumbling and staggering. Talented scholars lost their hats and hairpins, their hair disheveled. Beautiful women dropped their silk stockings, running barefoot. Corpses piled up in the streets, blood flowed everywhere. Their might overturned the Jade Palace, their shouts shook the Forbidden City. These heroes fought their way through the crowd, making their way to Minged Gate. It was already past midnight. Outside the city gate, there were 22 men who had eaten dinner at dusk, fed their horses, and prepared their saddles and bridles. They waited at the wide street entrance for their masters. They were divided into 2 shifts. One half watched the horses, and the other half went into the city gate to watch the lanterns, then relieved the horse watchers. By midnight, they had changed shifts several times before going back into the city to watch the lanterns. They saw ordinary people, disheveled, barefoot, naked, sweating profusely and seriously wounded, shouting, "Hurry up!" Hearing this, the few henchmen watching the lanterns rushed out of the city in a panic, saying, "Gentlemen, it seems our master has caused trouble in the city. He's killed some young Master Yuan. Send a few horsemen and a few strong men to help me block the city gate." "Don't let the gatekeeper close it. If he closes it, our master won't be able to leave the city," the crowd agreed. "That makes sense." A dozen or so burly men went to the city gate. Some deliberately tried to enter the city, while others deliberately tried to leave. They wrestled and fought, pushing and shoving the gatekeepers. At this moment, the Golden Guard General and the prefect of the capital, who were patrolling the streets, heard that young Master Yuan had been killed, and fearing he might escape, rushed to order the gate closed. But how could they close it? The heroes had just arrived at the city gate, and seeing that it was open, realized they had a way out. They rushed out and seized the gate. The henchmen, seeing their master under the lanterns and moonlight, also scrambled out of the city. Seeing his own horse by the roadside, he leaped onto it and released the reins. The green silk net shattered. The brocade-scaled dragon fled. Breaking through the boundless traps, the jade-clawed eagle soared high. The 7 horses, leading a group of men, galloped towards Tongyuan Pass, reaching Yangfu Temple. Chai Junma wanted to keep Xiu Bao at the temple to await Tang Gong's reply. Xiu Bao said, "I fear it might be inconvenient with people around." He also instructed the temple to quickly destroy the Bayad shrine and to keep the 2 clay maces hidden from view. He waved goodbye, and his horse galloped like the wind. Approaching Sheahua Mountain, Xiu Bao said to Badeng on horseback, "Next year on the 23rd of the 9th month, it will be my mother's 60th birthday. Would you like to come and pay your respects, my worthy brother?" Badeng, Li Rugui, and Qi Guoyuan replied, "We younger brothers will naturally come." Xiu Bao refused to enter the mountain, and the 2 parted ways. He then returned to Kizhu. Meanwhile, at the city gate, the gate was left open only after the thief left, a classic case of closing the gate when the thief is gone. The neighborhood was a scene of carnage, with countless houses of ordinary people burned down. At this time, in Yuan Shu's mansion, a royal banquet was being held as a gift from the emperor. The banquet was held in the main hall, with phoenix candles burning brightly and music playing below. This powerful family was enjoying the emperor's great favor. As they drank, a continuous stream of people rushed in from outside the mansion gate, shouting, "Disaster!" Yuan Shu was busy and left the banquet hall, standing under the eaves, waving his hand to tell the crowd not to shout. Several of his household servants reported, "My young master was watching the lanterns outside the West Chang'an Gate when bandits, under the pretext of performing a folk dance, attacked and killed him." Yuan Shu doted on this son, and upon hearing of his untimely death, he was heartbroken. He exclaimed, "What grudge did my son have against the bandits that he was killed by them?" The servants dared not speak of their young master's evil deeds, and they all lied to cover it up, saying, "My young master was playing around with a woman named Wang after drinking, and that old woman complained to the bandits. The bandits then attacked and killed him." Yuan Shu asked, "Where are the old woman and the young woman?" They replied, "The old woman is nowhere to be found, but the young woman is in the mansion." Yuan Shu was furious and said, "Quickly seize this vile woman, drag her out of the ceremonial gate, and beat her to death with sticks." He then ordered his servants to take knives and axes, search the woman's house, and kill all her family members. They also ordered the house to be demolished and burned. The men, obeying the order, dragged the woman out, beat her to death, and threw her into a hidden compartment in the wall. The old woman's entire family was also killed. Truly, what beauty could captivate a city? She was the root of a family's downfall. Yuan Shu, still seething with hatred, summoned the skilled painter from his household and ordered the guards who had fought off the enemy in the market to provide a detailed description of the bandits who had killed his son, requesting a portrait and the dispatch of men to arrest them. The crowd reported first, "This man is 10 feet tall, in his 20s, dressed in plain blue clothes and wielding double maces." The mention of double maces immediately stirred a nearby servant, Yuan Shu's head guard of the Eastern Palace, who quickly knelt down and said, "Master, if this man wields double maces, he's easy to find. Back in the first year of Renshu, when I was ordered by you to beat Master Li at Jiashugang, I encountered this man. I suffered a loss at the time, but I didn't harm Master Li." Yuan Shu said, "So Li Yuan knew I wanted to harm him that day, so he sent this man to seek revenge." At this moment, Yuan Shu's 3 sons were all present. Huajai hurriedly said, "No need to discuss this. Tomorrow we'll just submit a petition to Li Yuan demanding his life." Zhaijai also cursed Li Yuan, wanting revenge for his brother's death. Only Yuan Shiji, who possessed some understanding of reason, said, "That's not true. Many people in the world look alike and many can wield a mace. If Li Yuan wanted revenge, why today? Besides, we haven't caught the robber and there's no evidence. Even if he came from Jiashugang, could we tell anyone? We should just investigate calmly." Yuan Shu, upon hearing this, was also unsure if it was a servant of the Tang family. The next day, he only said that an unknown person had killed his son, burned down houses, and injured people, and ordered a swift arrest. To find out what happens next, please read the next chapter.